I appreciate you acknowledging my tardiness. I waited for you for far too long. My apologies. I arrived via aeroplane. One business deal was enough to ruin Joan Rivers' career. She departed in 1986 to join a new Fox program. A lifelong ban was imposed on her by her boss, who believed she had betrayed him. Television networks refused to air her program. Notable individuals would not attend. Fox fired her after a couple of months. Tragically, her husband committed suicide 3 months later. False interviews mocked her suffering even when it was at its worst. This is Joan Rivers' story, how Hollywood rejected her because she broke the rules. Joan Rivers was born Mary Joan Malinsky. She entered this world on June 8, 1933 in Brooklyn, New York. Her Russian parents emigrated to America. The famous and humorous Dr. Mir Malinsky was her father. Growing up with her older sister, Joan was a devout Jewish child. A peaceful section of Brooklyn they called Doctor's Row home. It was safe for kids to ride bikes anywhere, and everyone was friendly. Joan always wanted more from life, even though she was comfortable and secure in Brooklyn. She was eager to leave Brooklyn and become famous after she thought Manhattan was a lovely place. Joan arrived in her car ahead of schedule. At the tender age of 8, she attempted to capture the interest of MGM Studios by sending them a framed photograph of herself. In first grade, she stood out to all of her teachers. She had a strong desire to succeed in acting, and her teachers noted this on her report card. Another thing that would make her famous was their claim that she talked too much. Joan quickly became involved in school plays and eventually became the head of the acting club while she was a high school student. This video was made by her when she was 16 years old. She owes her witty sense of humor and intense ambition to her immigrant family and the environment in which she was raised. After Joan finished high school, she enrolled at Connecticut College for her freshman year of college. However, she quickly transferred to Barnard College in New York City. She participated in challenging classes and student productions throughout her time there. No matter what she did, she gave it her all. She earned a degree in anthropology and English literature in 1954, along with 5 Beta Kappa honors. Joan always wanted to be an actress, but she never pursued the career. After graduating from college, Joan married the son of the store's owner and began working as a buyer for the chain. Unfortunately, Joan realized after just 6 months of marriage that she needed more out of life than what she was getting. Her desire to perform on stage remained strong, and she was determined to give it another go. The fearless and sassy comedian that the world knows and loves today was once a young woman named Joan Malinsky who was attempting to make it big in New York. At the age of 25, she lived in the year 1958. She worked multiple jobs to cover her expenses. She had a variety of jobs, including guiding visitors around Rockefeller Center, writing and editing for an advertising agency, and assisting clients at Bond clothing stores. Things started to shift when her publicist, Joan Rivers, suggested that she should adopt a stage name. Joan Rivers was her first choice since she found the name more intriguing. She went on to say that performing under a pseudonym helped her navigate seedy nightclubs. Like a party dress, she donned Joan Rivers. Deep down, she was still Joan Malinsky, scared, confused, and unsure. The disparity between the courageous comic on stage and the self-conscious woman behind the scenes would burden her for the remainder of her life. At first, she was completely turned off by the entertainment industry. She failed miserably at becoming a famous actress. Despite having graduated from Barnard College in The Tonight Show was hosted by Jack Paar when she initially tried her luck. It damaged her career for 7 years and was widely regarded as a catastrophe. Joan had a difficult life thereafter. She would travel from Larchmont to New York City by train and use inexpensive photo booths to have her picture taken. After that, she'd spend hours at Howard Johnson perusing theater advertisements. When she was just 31 years old in 1965, the industry was already referring to her as washed up. Meanwhile, up-and-coming young comedians such as George Carlin, Woody Allen, and Richard Pryor were achieving unprecedented success. Little Joan could do in a world where nobody paid attention to her. Her first marriage had ended badly, adding to her already difficult situation. Joan persevered in the face of numerous setbacks. Her distinctiveness lay in that. Before she discovered her comedic niche, she accomplished all of this. It was initially unclear to Joan what kind of comic she aspired to be. In her pursuit of performing on stage, she spared no effort. Pepper January was the stage name she used for her shows, and she occasionally referenced TV jokes. She got her start in the working world at a strip club in Boston, where she encountered numerous busy and bored patrons. Nothing about it was thrilling. She was also uninterested in by the club owners. Despite Fred Winrow's best efforts, The renowned Bitter End audience did not react. He reasoned that she would be more comfortable performing with a trio, so he paired her with Jim, Jake, and Joan. However, that was short-lived. She still had a tough time even when she had the opportunity to perform at the Duplex, a tiny cabaret. When she initially began singing humorous songs, the club owner told her to quit and engage with the audience. Around 1961, she was performing improv at Chicago's Second City when her ambitions got the best of her. Her male counterparts there were not fond of her. They preferred that she not make people laugh, but she had no intention of backing down either. Joan had to hone her timing skills, fortify her character, and begin cultivating the quick risk-taking style that would bring her fame in the future. All of this in a very competitive and demanding environment. Making it big was a result of Joan Rivers' years of hard work. Throughout the course of 3 exhausting years, she made 7 separate unsuccessful audition attempts. At the age of 31, many in the industry felt she had blown her opportunity. So far, they claimed she was clean. On February 17, 1965, though, things began to change. Johnny Carson's Tonight Show gave her another opportunity to appear. This time around, though, it didn't feel like her previous disastrous performance as host Jack Parr. In addition to inviting her to perform, Carson invited her to sit down beside him. It was quite an accomplishment at the time. In front of an audience of millions, he proclaimed, "You're going to be a star." Everything changed for her in that instant. Instantly, critics were very fond of her. According to Time magazine, she possessed the same irreverent sense of humor and unique style as Woody Allen. A few short weeks ago, Joan Rivers was struggling, but now she's one of America's most in-demand comedians. She was hired as a writer for The Tonight Show and booked on bigger shows. For the first time, it was as if a door had been flung open. The Tonight Show was a regular stop for Rivers as the years passed. She wasn't like any other guest, you know. By September 1983, NBC had officially announced that Joan Rivers would be a regular guest host on Johnny Carson's show. After nearly 100 shows, she was unrivaled by the other comics who had previously shared the spot. She left in 1986 after hosting the show 190 times. The truth would eventually come out of Joan's mouth. According to her, NBC would never allow a female host to host full-time as long as Johnny remained unaffected. However, she persisted in crossing a threshold that few women had the courage to cross. In addition to that, it was her first experience with stereo-aired episodes of The Tonight Show. On top of that, it could only be played in stereo by one New York station. To be sure, it was a giant leap ahead. Joan was causing a sensation in Las Vegas and was finally getting her chance to shine on television. Crazy as it may seem, she was a strip artist for 43 years. Even though it was always funny to her, she was actually pioneering something new. She claimed to be the strip queen since she was willing to work for anyone. Her first visit to Sin City was in 1969, when she shared the stage with John Davidson at the Riviera. Her 1972 Caesar's Palace performance, however, was the one that truly made her famous. Unlike her predecessors, Joan was not interested in making people laugh by acting foolish. "I was the first one that said try to look good." She went on to open for artists such as Diana Ross and Anne Margaret, despite the fact that women stand-up comedians were still considered unconventional at the time. Her desire to appear glamorous was contagious. From 1983 to 1991, she continued to shine at Caesars alongside the Smothers Brothers and Gary Shandling. She continued to return, even when she didn't play very frequently. The Venetian was the site of her final performances in 2012. Joan proved she was more than just a stand-up comic just 3 years after landing her big break on The Tonight Show. That show with Joan Rivers, her daytime talk show, premiered in 19... Every program had its own central theme. First, she would lighten the mood by making jokes. Next, she'd have a well-known figure and an authority on the subject discuss it. Johnny Carson was the first person she wore. Jerry Lewis, Don Rickles, and Joel Grey were subsequent notable figures. Other talk shows would model themselves after it for decades. Despite the short run of just 2 years, Joan was an early trailblazer in the gender gap, becoming one of the first women to host her own show in the 19... Can we talk is another phrase that permanently ingrained itself in American culture. The 1980s were the beginning of it all in Sin City. When Joan made a cruel joke about Elizabeth Taylor's weight, the audience gasped. "Can we talk here?" was the perfect 3 words to halt the conversation and give everyone the impression that they were privy to an intimate discussion. Her style was summed up in that line. Instead of trying to convince you of anything, Joan just wanted you to laugh along with her, like you were best friends sharing a secret. Even though she passed away in 2014, those were the words that stuck with everyone. According to Rabbi Sarah Schendelman, Joan's genuine influence extended beyond her comedic timing and extended to her delivery of messages. "Can we talk?" was more than just a question.
It was an invitation to live life to the fullest, laugh at one's mistakes, and not be afraid. At the beginning of 1986, Joan Rivers made a decision that would have a lasting impact on her life. She was filling in for Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show nearly every night of the year. The public expected her to succeed him, but sly maneuvering was taking place in the background. The new boss of the young Fox network, Barry Diller, gave Joan her own late-night talk show. Never before had a woman been the object of such an action. It was an opportunity to make history. The only person aware of the discussions was Carson. If he found out, Joan was terrified he would put a stop to her. Just before the deal was announced to the public, Joan attempted to contact Carson by phone. She tried to reach him by phone 8 times, but was unsuccessful each time. The news didn't get out until it was too late. Being betrayed wounded Carson. A man who had taken pride in showing her around the United States before now saw her as a traitor. Because of that one incident, they hadn't communicated with one another in over 23 years. A massive deal was struck with Fox. During the course of 3 years, Joan negotiated a deal worth $10 million, now worth even more. Despite his lack of experience, Fox nevertheless chose to employ Edgar Rosenberg, her husband, as the show's producer. There was no way Joan could say no. Signing the papers gave her the impression that she was going to the next level. The launch of The Late Show by Joan Rivers on October 9, 1986, was a major event. It was her late-night talk show that made history as the first to feature a female host. With a budget of $10 million, Fox made a lot of promises to her. They wanted her show to compete with Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show. Nonetheless, Carson wouldn't be of any assistance. After appearing on Joan's show, he blacklisted them, making it extremely difficult for her to secure appearances from famous people. Because they were so devoted to Carson, some TV stations, including one in her hometown, wouldn't even air her show. Not everyone was on board. Some people just didn't like her. Fox allowed affiliates to opt out of watching the show in an effort to please everyone. That decision halved its reach. A few months was all it took for the figures to plummet. The once historical event in television history swiftly descended into oblivion. Fox no longer regarded Joan as their prized possession. Instead, he saw her as an imposition. Her presence was unwelcome. Behind the scenes, things were considerably worse. Producers of the show were Edgar and Joan Rosenberg. Fox was initially on board with it, but they started blaming him as soon as the numbers dropped. They told Joan she had to fire Edgar if she wanted to stay. No, Joan disagreed. Both of them were let go by Fox on May 15th. Things got crazy during the last show. Aside from slime, shaving cream and toilet paper were scattered across the set. Some of Joan's wildest guests included Pee Wee Herman, Howie Mandel, and a young Chris Rock. Her stage manager too arrived in character as an irrational incarnation of the performer. It was as if the last show showed someone fighting to the very end despite knowing they were already down. After the fact, Joan remarked that it seemed like they were publicly terminating her employment. Tragic events occurred once again within 91 days of their dismissal. The body of a man was discovered on August 14, 1987, in an unoccupied hotel room in Philadelphia. He succumbed to the effects of an overdose of Valium. The day before, he phoned Joan to say he would be home soon, but he was actually struggling. The effects of Edgar's massive heart attack in 1984 never completely subsided. Despite his best efforts, his loved ones noticed that he appeared increasingly fragile. His condition deteriorated further, and internal bleeding began during his journey to Ireland. When he passed away, he was barely a shell of his former self. Joan discovered yet another nightmare when she investigated their accounts after his death. She was indebted to Edgar for $37 million because of how badly he handled their finances. Joan came clean about her near-suicide attempt 8 months later. A tragic moment had passed. According to her, as she sat there clutching a revolver, her small dog Spike leaped into her lap. She was saved from death by that fleeting love. The world, however, was far from finished being cruel. A fabricated interview featuring Joan was published by GQ magazine during her sad period. It depicted her making derogatory jokes regarding Edgar's demise, such as a sick joke regarding the Rosenbergs, who were executed for espionage. Ben Stein, who had never met Joan, was the so-called reporter. He had experience writing speeches. He fabricated all the details. Despite having already lost and been humiliated, Joan fought back. Both Stein and GQ were hit with libel suits. She received a settlement and donated the entire sum to charity despite the odds being against her. However, she had already suffered an emotional wound. Upon reflection, Joan revealed that during her darkest hours in Hollywood, she felt invisible, ignored, and mocked. The fact that Joan Rivers recovered from her near-total loss surprised everyone. In 1989, she launched The Joan Rivers Show, which was unlike any other talk show. It was the way she got back up off the ground. Not long after her husband Edgar Rosenberg took his own life, she was let go from her late-night Fox show a few years prior. The entertainment industry ignored her. Someone blacklisted her. Few were interested in collaborating with her. However, Joan persisted. She battled her way back with the debut of a syndicated afternoon show on September 5, 1989. She co-created it with Tribune Entertainment and PGHM Productions, her own production company. Tribune oversaw all production after Paramount assisted with the first season. It was a major player in the early 1990s television landscape, with over 1,000 episodes. Even finding episodes was a challenge for a long time. Retro episodes, however, started airing again in 2019, and by 2021 you could even watch them online. Joan got the chance to showcase her strengths, her courage, humor, and daring to a new audience. Just 3 years after her entire world crumbled, Joan delivered one of her most emotionally charged performances ever. She was honored with a Daytime Emmy for her exceptional work as a talk show host. Even though her own show wasn't nominated for Best Talk Show that night, she still stood on stage with tears in her eyes. She addressed the audience by saying, "This is really for him. He was with me from the beginning." Joan saw it as more than just a prize. It was evidence that she could handle anything, even when Johnny Carson kicked her off The Tonight Show after she left for Fox. Jimmy Fallon's tenure as host brought an end to the prohibition, which had lingered for years. However, that was irrelevant. That night, Joan triumphed in her battle. As she attempted to revive her career, Joan maintained a presence in the public eye through various means. She had a prime location in the center of Hollywood squares, and her wit brought joy to all who heard her. At about the same time, she performed an equally famous show in which she did not even reveal her face. Despite the ongoing problems with her late-night show, she voiced the character Matrix in Mel Brooks's Spaceballs in 19... It was a wild and humorous spin on Star Wars, and Joan's performance as the lead actress really set it apart. Though it bombed at the box office upon release, Spaceballs eventually won over audiences. After the dust settled, her performance in the film proved that she could remain a pop culture icon while simultaneously making fun of herself. However, Joan's pastimes extended beyond mere entertainment consumption. In 1994, she did something perilous. She was both a cast member and a co-writer in the play Sally Marr and Her Escorts. The life of the legendary comedian Lenny Bruce's mother served as inspiration for the film. The majority of reviewers felt that Joan was excellent in the lead role, even though they did not all enjoy the play. While some praised her audacity, others found her irresistible. Despite the short run, just 50 performances, her performance earned her Tony and Drama Desk Award nominations. Along with her daughter Melissa, she appeared in the television film Tears and Laughter, the Joan and Melissa Rivers story that same year. The protagonist dealt with the aftermath of Edgar's death by creating art as an outlet for their grief. Beyond her comedic side, Joan demonstrated that she was a formidable fighter, with the ability to transform suffering into an unforgettable experience. Beyond just walking the red carpet, Joan Rivers made a permanent impact. Upon taking over as host of E! In 1996, Live from the Red Carpet evolved into a show to enjoy, rather than merely a platform to observe the arrival of famous people. People made fun of her at first because she asked celebrities, "Who are you wearing?"